What's going on, guys? It's your boy Distant Coder, and today I'm gonna be talking to you guys about a brand new ruling that has popped up with a new card from Dimension Force by the name of Psychic End Punisher. So the reason why we're talking about Psychic End Punisher is because it is a new card that has come out in the most recent set in the TCG, and this card is seeing a lot more play because it is a card that is quite difficult to out for some of the more meta-relevant decks. Now, the effect in question that is most important about Psychic End Punisher is an effect that makes it quite difficult for certain decks to out. The effect in question reads as follows. While your life points are less than or equal to your opponent's, this Synchro Summon card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. If you pair that effect to the fact that Psychic End Punisher is a 3500 attack body, it is quite difficult to out. The primary question being asked is whether or not Mirror Jade's effect that activates when it leaves the field is able to out the Psychic End Punisher. Now, the reason why this is a question that's popping up a lot is because Despia and Branded are an archetype that have a very difficult time outing the Psychic End Punisher. So the effect in question that we're talking about here is Mirror Jade's effect that reads as follows. If this Fusion Summon card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase of this turn. Now, the reason why this is a question that's being brought up is specifically because, yes, the effect is an effect that activates, however, it actually resolves the effect to destroy the opponent's monster at a later point in the turn. And so for that reason, players are asking themselves the question about whether or not the end phase effect of the Mirror Jade is treated as an activated effect, or if it is not treated as an activated effect, because that makes a difference about whether or not the Mirror Jade is successfully able to out the Psychic End Punisher. Now, as per usual, for the most part, if you want to know this ruling and how it's going to be ruled at specific events, you should always be asking your head judge. However, I know you guys come here because you want something a little bit more concrete, and that would basically be a little bit more of a blanket statement, giving you a more generalized answer as to whether or not the Mirror Jade effect should or should not deal with the Psychic End Punisher. So for that, we go to the OCG database. So in the OCG database, there actually is a ruling that sets a precedent for this exact scenario. The two cards that are used in this example are Cyberdark and Dragon, which has the following effect that reads, unaffected by your opponent's activated effect. It's effectively like Psychic End Punisher, it just doesn't have that restriction on the life point count that is needed in order for it to be unaffected. And in this ruling in question, we are comparing the effect of Cyber and Dragon versus the ultimate creature of destruction, a Blue Eyes trap card that reads as follows. Target one Blue Eyes monster you control. This turn, that face-up monster is unaffected by card effects except its own. It cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, any monster it battles is destroyed at the end of the damage step. Now, to make the comparison between the Mirror Jade Psychic End Punisher example and the Cyberdark and Dragon versus Ultimate Creature of Destruction example, they're effectively the same thing, an effect that activates at one point but resolves at a later point in the turn versus a monster that is typically unaffected by activated effects. Now, the ruling in the OCG database is worded as follows. My opponent controls a Cyberdark and Dragon, and its effect that makes it unaffected by my activated effects is applying. I control a Blue Eyes White Dragon to which the effect of the Ultimate Creature of Destruction has been applied, causing any monster it battles to be destroyed at the end of the damage step. If the two monsters battle, what happens? Cyberdark and Dragon is unaffected by any effect applying while resolving a chain link resulting from an opponent's activation, as long as its own effect is applying at that time. However, here, the effect of Ultimate Creature of Destruction is not applied to Cyber and Dragon while resolving a chain link. Here, the effect of Ultimate Creature of Destruction that destroys an opponent's monster that battles your targeted monster is not an effect that applies while resolving a chain link formed by the Ultimate Creature of Destruction's activation. Instead, it is an effect that applies later at the end of the damage step when the monster that was targeted by the effect battles. Therefore, it can destroy a monster that is unaffected by the activated effect of the Ultimate Creature of Destruction. Now, I know this sounds overly complicated, so let's break this down. Basically, what this ruling in question is saying is that an activated effect is only considered that an activated effect if that effect is resolving in the same chain link in which you activated the card or the effect. Basically, what this means is that if you activate a card or effect, and then that card or effect resolves, and then later on in the turn, it applies an effect based on that initially activated effect, when you would resolve that effect later on in the turn, that is no longer considered an activated effect. So when considering cards that are unaffected by activated effects are basically cards like Raigeki Break, or anything like that, that activate and resolve their effect at the moment of activation, as opposed to something sort of like Skill Drain, which is a continuous effect, not considered an activated effect. So if you activate Skill Drain while Psychic and Punisher is on the field, the Psychic and Punisher's effects will successfully be negated. Now, what we're talking about here is when you have what is known as a delayed effect. It's not a real term, but it is a term that we use in the player base and stuff like that to explain an effect that activates and resolves at one point, and only later on in the turn does it actually perform that action. Something like, you know, any sort of monster that has an effect that activates at some point and then searches later on, or something like Mary Jade that activates when it leaves the field, but applies the actual destruction during the end phase of the turn. So for this reason, due to the precedent that we have with the Cyberdark End Dragon versus the Ultimate Creature of Destruction, same as it's worded in the database, the Mirror Jade would be able to successfully apply its destruction effect to the unaffected Psychic and Punisher and successfully destroy that Psychic and Punisher. So do keep in mind, whenever you have a card that has a delayed effect, when you initially activate the card, if you do not perform the action that the card does at the moment of resolving that initial chain link, if it happens later on in the turn, it is not treated as being an activated effect. And I think that's the most important thing that you guys need to take away from this video in order to basically understand what is and is not considered an activated effect, despite the fact that the card or the effect initially does activate, but because it applies it later on in the turn, that effect resolution is not treated as an activated effect. So anyways, guys, that was it for this ruling explanation video. I hope you guys learned something new, and I hope you guys found it interesting. This ruling question has been asked to me a lot in the last couple of weeks, and I think it was a very interesting one, and is one that I initially did not directly remember the answer to. I had to go digging and researching a little bit, which is fine. We're not encyclopedias as judges. We don't remember absolutely everything, but I think it was a very interesting ruling question, and one that has not come up very often in the past. So I think it's very good to know this one for cards that may be coming out in the future, or in the current present of the TCG, it does come up with this interaction with Psychic and Punisher versus Mirror Jade. So that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace!